Who is Satoshi Nakamoto? That's an interesting question. Well, at least it used to be. I believe that Satoshi has finally been unmasked. Um, Not that it hadn't happened previously, but it's happened on a fairly wide-reaching scale now by a YouTuber who goes by the name Barely Sociable. I am not a Bitcoin advocate. I have never owned any Bitcoin. I followed Bitcoin a little bit back in the early days. I say early days, probably, I don't know, 2011 or 2012. Might have been more in the post hype period. I always came across this very cultish. Never saw really much value in it for me. Um, but I do love a good mystery, and so the mystery of who invented Bitcoin was always very interesting to me. I did some research on it, topically, tangentially, I guess you might say, and looked at all of the and I looked at all of the usual suspects, Nick Szabo and Hal Finney, to name a few, and Dorian Nakamoto, etc. And I settled personally up until this past week. It was settled in my mind for years that my favorite was Jed McCaleb, CEO of Mount Gox, who had PTP programming skills, programmed eDonkey 2000 back in the day. So it just seemed too coincidental that this guy was a P2P programmer who happened to acquire one of the largest, I guess you would say, conversion houses for Bitcoin. So I thought maybe, in some likelihood, maybe that was who it was, and that was as far as I needed. It was not going to be proven by me. But I watched Barely Sociable's 3 videos that he did on it. The first 2 videos, I believe you could. I mean, all the videos are for the most part standalone. I believe you could throw the first 2 videos out completely. Yeah, all of that information is stuff that you'd probably learn on your own if you went out there. The third video is where he really digs deep into building his case for Adam Back, the CEO of Bitstream, being Satoshi. Makes complete sense. I mean, there's a lot of what do you call it? Circumstantial evidence. The fact that Adam is British, grew up in England, um, types in British English. He double spaces after every sentence, and all of these are characteristics of Satoshi. But more importantly than that, you can go back and look at who Satoshi had correspondence with, Hal Finney, and the others from the cypherpunks, and there are no emails between Satoshi and Adam. And there's a number of other tremendously solid, valid points that that Barely Sociable puts forward. So I would say that he's likely correct, and I again am just an observer. But here's what I would say about Barely Sociable's case. I have never seen a more thorough case put together. I haven't seen anybody debunk it. I've seen a couple of people try to debunk it, but they haven't debunked it satisfactorily in my mind. Um, And there's not any other cases that have been made for anyone else, any other suspect, to that extent. So I believe that Barely Sociable believes that he's correct. I would say, without having done the research myself, that I don't know with 100% certainty, but listening to his case, yeah, beyond a reasonable doubt, I think he's got it. He has hit the nail on the head. Does it matter? At this point, Bitcoin is old news. The mystery is dated, spoiled. It's past its heyday. Um, I don't think anyone really cares. People that are involved in Bitcoin probably don't really care much at this point, other than it just being an interesting thing. So, why hasn't Satoshi cashed out is the question. And I'm just going to take a guess. In my opinion, um, I believe that if it is Adam back, assuming that Satoshi's still alive, he would have been a fool not to cash out at this point, by this point. Um, Unless he's smarter than me, and it's very likely he knows things that I don't know. So I would hazard a guess, and I'm betting that he doesn't have access to the Bitcoin wallets that he used to mine those Bitcoin back in the early days. I suspect something happened. Either he didn't hold on to them, uh, maybe he had hardware failure, who knows? But I suspect that those Bitcoin are lost. that's my guess. Again, it's just a guess. I know that if I was in his situation and I had access to all of those Bitcoin, I think I would be trying to find a way to take my winnings and not to say that Adam Back doesn't have a great life. I mean, I guess he lives in Malta. I've been to Malta twice. It's a beautiful place. Um, Although you get bored with it really quick unless you have the ability to travel, on your own. I mean, it is an island. You can pretty much see the whole thing in a week. Um, but there's a lot of culture there and a lot of good stuff to do there. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think I would. I don't have complete foresight of it, anything. But I would have cashed out. Yeah, I just being an observer would have to say that yeah, probably um, Barely Sociable is correct. I'd like to see any counter argument, any real counter argument. I watched the live stream that Barely Sociable did, where he was countering these two guys who were just spewing nonsense, right? Really weren't debunking anything, and that's what spurred me to make this video. So anyway, yeah, I think he's right, man. I agree.